Okay, all right, now. Check 1, 2, man. Y'all know what time it is, man. Big Mike, the Fat Baxter, Triple XL, and Full of Fizz Ed coming at you live and direct from Max City Limits Radio Show. Visit the Patreon, /Max City Limits. Yes, and MaxCity.com. And go ahead, Tony, go ahead, pay your bills.
PowerandStrategy.com. My PayPal is wayofstrategy44. My email is wayofstrategy44. My Patreon is going to be Power of Strategies on Patreon. And that's where you can find me at. Let's get this shit on, baby.
Let's get it on, man. Yeah, man. Also, the PayPal will be in the description box and in the comment section. Both of our PayPals if you enjoyed the show. So, once again, me and Tony, man, y'all know what time it is with us, man. We are all about men's rights. We are all about defending manhood on this channel. You know what I mean? So if any of you cats, man, any of you broads or any of you simp niggas got a problem with that, kick the rocks. You know what I mean?
Get your raggedy ass off this channel. Get the fuck out of here right now.
Man, I'm trying to tell you, boy, we told y'all, man. Once the Cosby gates, the floodgates was opened, man, nobody would be safe. Nobody would be motherfucking safe. So, right about now, I want to juxtapose two situations that I've just witnessed. I mean, we could throw a lot of shit in the mix, man, with a lot of people, a lot of celebrities, a lot of court cases. But let's go ahead and talk about two situations right about now. First of all, let's start off with the Cardi B situation. That's what I want to do. Are you familiar what was going on with Cardi B for the past week?
I understand it was a situation where she admitted or she is alleged to have drugged and raped a motherfucker.
And this is like coming from her mouth where she she admitted the shit. She said, yeah, that's how I used to get down. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Uh-huh. And so she's walking around free.
Oh, yeah, freer than the sun, bitch, man.
And nobody has applied any period. There's no talk of arresting this bitch.
No, not 20 years later, or however long ago it was. I don't know how
but
long.
They went back and got Mr. Cosby for some shit he did 30 or 40 years ago.
Right.
Well, this shit with this other girl was about, 2004? So they went back and got him for some shit 14 years ago and then expanded the fucking statute of limitations so that they can convict him.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So, I don't know how long ago these alleged events happened with Cardi B, but...
So it's more than one.
Shit, I mean, she was basically stating that, man, that's just how she used to get down when she was in the strip club, man. And I can vouch for that, man, because it was, man, you know my broads, man. Yeah, my broads was known for, like, going to the club and, taking dudes out the club, getting them drunk, pilfering their pockets and all that shit. I mean, they didn't rape the motherfuckers as long as... I mean, I'm pretty sure they probably...
They just robbed them niggas. They just basically robbed them niggas.
Well, I'm pretty sure they did screw them, you know what I mean? But I wouldn't call that rape, the men, I think they liked that part, but they definitely robbed them niggas. They was known for robbing these niggas, you know what I'm saying? But still, no one's boycotting this chick. No one's saying mute her. No one's saying take her shit off iTunes. You know what I mean? Like with the R. Kelly and the Bill Cosby. I just find that very interesting, man, that no one has nothing to say about this. It just kind of blew over like a summer breeze, man. No one gives a damn.
Not the slightest controversy about it. None of the women's magazines. Madame Noir ain't saying shit about it. Boss Up ain't saying shit about it. Black Twitter ain't saying shit about it. Ain't nobody saying shit about it. It's okay. It's okay. Because you got this ratchet ass bitch teaching hoes how to sell pussy. So I guess that's acceptable too. But they'll criminalize a nigga for buying it.
Woo-wee, boy. Hold on. Let me see something right quick. Let me see something. Let me make sure this shit recording. Hold on. Always gotta double check this bitch. Okay then.
Yeah, you make sure you plugged in.
Okay. Well, what I want to do right now, man, I want to go back because I don't think cats really understand how deep this is for me, because I remember, man, in the early 90s, being a conspiracy nut, man, wearing my tinfoil hat and reading, certain things. What was that book, man? Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, man. And,
yes.
Just thinking about how the social engineers were going to bring in a new world paradigm, a new world order by hook or by crook. And a lot of the Mac City crew, the Mac City citizens, know that I've talked about this on a lot of occasions on my podcast, man, about how the so-called quote-unquote Illuminati was going to turn society upside down and on its face. How they were going to invert the family. How they were going to empower the children and empower the woman and emasculate the man. Okay? And of course, this is coming to Caucasian men as well. All men, but you can see it really blatantly coming down the pipe with black men. All right, we always say that black folks or black men are the canaries in the coal mine. Before it happens to the white folks, it happens to the black folks first. Basically, this is what is coming to white America. All right, you see how black men are being emasculated and how they're being kicked in the balls and how they're having their rights stripped away and all the rights are being given to the woman. All right, this is by design. This is not by happenstance. All right, like I said, they're going to, in order for them to do their dirt, in order for them to basically have the government rule over all without question, they have to destroy the nuclear family. They have to basically say that, or they have to use the woman as a Trojan horse. They have to use her as a firewall to basically do this. It really all hinges upon the woman. All right, and they're going to use the woman to get it. The woman is being used as a whore and a prostitute by the government. You know what I mean? They're using it to pilfer the man's pockets. They're using it to put men behind bars. I mean, it all hinges upon the woman. All right, so I've been studying this for years, man, since the early 90s. The tricks, the tactics, and the techniques of the oligarchs and the social engineers to use the woman to bring about this new world order. All right. So with that being said, I don't know, do you have anything to interject on that before we move on to the other half of the argument?
I don't deal with conspiracy theory. I deal with political research and facts.
Right.
So I won't even talk about quiet weapons for silent weapons for quiet wars. If you want to talk about the biggest acceptable form of conspiracy literature, you need to go no further than George Orwell's 1984.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about sex crimes and how men will be brought up on sex crimes. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going any further than there, but here's what I'm saying. See, we always trying to get white people to see the bigger picture. And white people have shown an inability to see the bigger picture because they too filled with that blind-ass, ignorant, unreasoning hatred for people of color.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not particularly concerned with white people's vision at this point, because we've been telling white people this for the last 200 years.
Right.
That whatever happens to us happens to them. So they don't seem to be too interested in listening to that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So therefore, today, I'm talking to niggas. I ain't talking to white people.
All right.
You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Because we have always tried to sound the alarm to get them to see that what happens to one happens to all. And they're too filled with that, again, that ignorance. They're too filled with those teachings that they know they're lies. At this point, they know that there's no such construct, there's no such truth, there's no such reality as man being supreme to another person. Man has differences, and those differences are superficial. They're superfluous. They're skin deep. There are some differences that may be important if you're talking about skin tone and melanin and some physical differences, yes. But other than that, man is man is man is man. So at this point, white people don't seem to comprehend that eternal truth. So therefore, this podcast, I'm not even discussing them today. So whatever happens to them, happens to them. I'm talking to niggas today. Okay? So this situation, as you spoke about, has been coming for a long time. This is nothing new. Okay? Go back into the annals of history, because you know how I do it.
All right.
You know how they got women to start smoking. You know how they got, the name Edward Bernays. Is that name familiar to you? Edward Bernays was Sigmund Freud's nephew.
Right.
Okay. So what they did was they discovered that women had a secret admiration for what it was like to be a man. You remember Beyonce's song, If I Was a Boy?
Yeah.
That subconscious penis envy. Well, they discovered that much earlier in women in the first half of the 20th century. And so what they did was the cigarette industry, the tobacco industry, discovered psychologically that women had this repressed sexual longing and this type of sexual admiration for male sexuality, specifically the penis.
All right.
And they discovered that when women smoked cigarettes, it made them, in some sense, they associated the cigarette with the penis, with the dick. So smoking a cigarette to them made them feel like a man. It was empowering.
All right.
So they were able to trample on the conventional gender norms of women by making them feel like a man. In other words, turning biology on its face. Now, you can go look this up. There is a there's a video on YouTube called The Century of Self, where they talk about this. And a black person didn't make this, a white person made this. It's called The Century of Self. Right. It's like a 3 or 4 volume documentary. And he said what they did was, in order to get women to buy cigarettes, in order to get women into the market to sell cigarettes, they stroked that penis envy by making them feel as though they were empowered through this penis envy. They were able to open up an entirely new market of people to sell cigarettes to by making them act and feel like men.
All right.
And you hear niggas today talk about or saying that, to see a woman smoke a cigarette is unattractive. Mm-hmm. It's masculine. It's the way it was designed to be that way. Mm-hmm. So my point in mentioning that story is that manipulation of gender roles and biology and manipulation of the idea of masculinity is real. Mm. Playing with people's heads in terms of gender roles, in terms of using male, in this case, using women as weapons against society, using women as cannon fodder to fuel the pockets of a small sector of the elite. In this case, being the tobacco industry, is real. It can happen. It does happen. It is happening, and it will continue to happen.
Yep.
Now we can move on.
All right. Let me go ahead and lay just a little bit more groundwork. Once again, this is all about, as far as I'm concerned, what I have read. The tinfoil hat conspiracy is to destroy the family, destabilize societies and cultures so that the government will be big brother. So it will know all and see all. In order to do that, it has to break down the nuclear family. It has to basically have the government will educate the children, okay? And also it will educate the woman in newspeak so that woman can also have her hands in partaking of the education of the children. And by design, they will, I don't know what's a good word I'm looking for. I guess you could say they will emasculate the men, and any man who steps up to try to run block and you try and raise your family, you try and put your woman in check, they're going to put you in cuffs and put you behind bars. They're going to emasculate you and take all your power. All right. So this is what's going on today, and they're not being shy about it anymore. Okay. And that's what this Cardi B shit is about. And that's why your R. Kellys and your Bill Cosbys, they're ending up on the hot seat just because of the words of some goddamn woman. Just because of the words. Okay, now, let's move on to something I just found out. I just checked out. I seen it on YouTube, man. I don't forgot the brother's name already. Was it Albert Wilson?
Albert Wilson, yes.
Albert Wilson. Okay, now, when this Cosby shit was jumping off, man, me and Tony told y'all, man, if they set this precedent, I know y'all tired of hearing us talk about it, but this shit is real, man. This ain't nothing to play with. All right, we said if they get this shit off, it's gonna be like it's gonna be a snowball effect, man. Cats is gonna be getting it from both ends. All right, so I contacted my boy Tony. I did a little bit of research on it. I couldn't get too much into it because, I mean, I was doing some other things. Once again, real world shit was calling me. But I did hit up Tony, who is the researcher of Max City Limits radio show, man. So I'm going to ask you, man, go ahead and give the fellas the rundown and the breakdown of this Albert Wilson cat and what he's being accused of.
Albert Wilson was a 20-year-old college student.
Black college student.
Black college student. Black male college student at the University of Kansas.
Okay.
There was a club near the campus that the campus kids attend. Albert Wilson was too young to get into the club.
Right.
He got a friend's ID, got into the club. Meanwhile, a 17-year-old ratchet white bitch. I'm going to say that again. A 17-year-old ratchet white bitch. Oh, you thought that they were black, that they had to be black to be ratchet?
No, they come in all shapes, sizes, and colors, man.
If you want proof of that, go to maxcity.com. Shameless plug, but I move on.
Word up.
She came to the campus to visit her quote-unquote cousin. She went to the club, too. Get this. They didn't even card her.
Right.
They carded Wilson. Mr. Wilson had to get in with somebody else's ID. They didn't even card that bitch.
Right.
Why not?
Shit. White privilege, my nigga.
Yeah, it's that, but see, the thing is, you want a club full of women because, see, women are going to draw the men. So there's a bottom line involved in that.
Exactly.
You understand?
Yeah.
So they getting paid off pussy, too. That's my point. But anyway, they don't card her. She comes into the club. At some point, her and Mr. Wilson meet. They dance. I guess Mr. Wilson must have, felt on a pussy, grabbed a handful of a booty and felt on her pussy. Now, from the video surveillance, from the video footage, it didn't seem like she was offended. Now, they are saying that at the time she was drunk, she was intoxicated. The old "I was drunk" thing.
Yep.
Don't that sound familiar?
Man, that's all I hear, man.
Wasn't Andrew Costan drinking?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So the old "I was drunk" thing. So this ratchet leaves the club with Mr. Wilson and goes back to his apartment, which is located a mere 5 minutes away from the club. Mr. Wilson is only in his apartment. They're alleging that he coaxed her back because she was saying she needed to find her cousin. She was drunk. They introduced testimony that said that this girl was so drunk she slurred her words. She's slurring her words. Okay? So they were saying that she was heavily intoxicated. At some point, she lost contact with her quote-unquote cousin. Mr. Wilson led her back, or manipulated her, or used her, or tricked her into coming back to his apartment. After they get back to the apartment, what happens next, according to the physical evidence, Mr. Wilson kissed her and sucked her titty and took her back to the bar.
All right.
the lab at the University of Kansas, the lab at the state, the criminology center at Kansas, did a rape kit on the girl. No seminal fluids.
Right.
None. His semen ain't nowhere on him.
Right.
So as far as we know, she didn't even suck his dick.
Okay.
The only thing they found was his saliva on her titty. Okay. No penetration took place. None. He probably fingered and sucked on her titty, brought her back to the bar. They weren't gone but 5 minutes.
I mean, is that literal 5 minutes? I mean, that can't be literal.
That's what they said, 5 minutes. They approximated it. It's an approximation.
But you said it's 5 minutes from the...
Yeah, 5 minutes from there, but they were only in his apartment for 5 minutes. That's the testimony on record.
Oh, okay.
She was just there for 5 minutes. He wasn't there long enough to do nothing.
Oh, okay.
Unless he just got in there skeet. But that didn't even happen because there's no seminal fluid.
Okay. All right.
You understand?
Yeah.
So he bought this girl right back. She hooked up with her cousin. And she went back and said that she had been raped. A rape kit was conducted, no semen.
Right.
Just his saliva on her titty. The state of Kansas sentenced Mr. Albert Wilson to 12 years in prison.
Shit.
On April 4th, the birthday of Martin Luther King Jr. That's not the birthday, the date Dr. King was assassinated. They sentenced Mr. Wilson to 12 years in the state penitentiary. And they said that's the low end, and they're right. But smoke this over. See, this is how people can play. This is why when what we talked about yesterday, when we were talking about our other subject, see, this is why I am the way that I am.
All right.
Now they're sitting here talking about it's the low end, and they're right. If you look at the statute, they can incarcerate this guy for up to 20 years.
Yeah.
12 years is the low end, but it ain't low by much.
Right.
And what does the low end of the statute mean when you never had a criminal record? He had no priors.
Exactly.
So what does the low end of the statute mean when you've never been to prison? What does low end of the statute mean when you don't have a prior criminal history? That may as well be 20 years. You understand?
Yeah.
To a 23-year-old black male, to a 23-year-old young black man, 12 years. What's the difference?
Now, wait a minute. Wait. So, there's no other evidence to corroborate the so-called rape? There's nothing.
None. Other than her word and the evidence of his saliva on her chest.
Okay, well, wait a minute. What about, did you read something about bruises on her inner thighs?
Yeah, they said there were bruises on her thigh, but where did the bruises come from?
Ain't no telling. She could have did that herself. Shit.
She could have did that herself.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't talk about that shit.
Right.
The bruises on her thigh, but what does that mean?
Don't mean shit.
Don't mean shit.
Don't
you
mean...
notice in that article, it didn't say that he caused those bruises.
Right.
See, that's the propaganda part. They put the bruises in there to make it appear as though. And anyway, think about this. How they gonna be bruises on her thigh and he ain't cracked the legs open?
You say he ain't.
I'm sorry?
You say he didn't crack her legs open.
He did not crack her legs open. So what the fuck do those bruises mean?
Shit.
If he did not penetrate that woman, how could she have bruises on her thighs? How can you connect those bruises to him? He didn't penetrate that girl.
Shit. Okay, well, let me ask you this: as far as when they
go, fuck them bruises.
Well, when they go and do, when they go get a rape kit, okay, do they also check the vagina for abrasions or scrapes?
Yes, they do.
Or
they do.
You know, yeah. So I'm assuming they didn't find nothing like that on the vagina.
Nothing like that.
Nothing
If they
like
found it, it would be in that goddamn article.
Okay.
Because her hymen would be ruptured.
Right.
There would be some slight vaginal bleeding.
Right. And niggas is also saying, I read this somewhere where they were saying, just because there's no seminal fluid doesn't mean that she wasn't raped, because if he didn't ejaculate, then there wouldn't be none. But I'm like, no, pre-cum also can count as seminal fluid too, nigga.
Pre-cum is seminal fluid.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So you don't have to ejaculate. You know what I mean? You could be in 2 or 3 strokes and still have seminal fluid or pre-cum. You know what I mean?
But some niggas gonna say, well, maybe he used a condom.
Mm-hmm, right.
Her hymen is still intact.
Okay.
A rape kit is a full spectrum analysis. It's not just a swab. They're also checking to see if the hymen has been ruptured. The hymen had not been ruptured. The worst he could have done was fingered her.
Okay.
And if he fingered her, he's not going to cause any in-depth bruising.
Okay.
But they didn't mention, and they said sex acts. So I don't know what the fuck that means. Did he eat her pussy? That ain't gonna bruise her.
Right.
And they didn't say that they found any saliva in her vaginal area. So arguably he didn't do that. They found saliva on her chest. They didn't find nothing wrong with her pussy.
Damn, boy. Boy, 12 years.
And you remember I said this specifically. I said, when they catch your ass, you're not going to have Cosby's money. You're going to have a court-appointed attorney, and they're going to stroke you. And that's exactly what happened to Mr. Wilson. He had a fucking court-appointed attorney.
Yeah, I was reading up on what actually happened with the court-appointed attorney. And he seems to have handled this horribly.
Of course he handled it horribly.
Yeah.
You know who court-appointed attorneys are? You know who the court-appointed attorney? You know who the majority of court-appointed attorneys are?
Who are they?
I'm gonna tell you who a court-appointed attorney is. A court-appointed attorney falls into 3 categories. 1, he's a motherfucker who is just getting out of law school. He doesn't have any trial experience. So that's like the welfare system for attorneys that just got their license. That's a way for them to go and get cases and earn a living on the public dime. In other words, they can't generate their own client base. They get their client base from the government. And they're practicing. So they're inexperienced, incompetent, and largely unsustainable or unsustained in the legal industry. That's the first category. The law school student has still got titty milk on his breath. A wet behind the ear, a law school graduate. That's the first category. The second category is a motherfucker who has been in private practice for a while, but he's unsuccessful. He hasn't been able to generate any type of business on his own. So what he's doing is he's using court-appointed cases to take up the lack of operating income he's getting as a result of him not being able to generate business on his own. In other words, he's compensating. He's using the public defender's office to shore up his income due to his inability, or his name isn't marketable enough for him to generate clients on his own. He doesn't have the reputation to draw in people through the doors. Like you see these attorneys that are advertised on television. Yeah. Big multi-million dollar firms, or these big successful huge conglomerates, or these chain franchise law offices that you see like Johnny Cochran had all across the country. Yeah. They don't have that name or that reputation. They're just an average attorney with average skill, average ability. So they're not making above average income. So they're using the public defender's office to supplement their income.
Do you know Do you know if the prosecution was a court-appointed attorney, or was that a legit attorney?
It's a government office. It's a government office, flat out. He's a government official. There's no such thing as court-appointed. You're a government official.
No, I'm talking about the plaintiff, the female who got so-called raped. Did she have a court-appointed?
No, she had a prosecutor. Prosecutor prosecutes criminal cases.
Yeah, she had a prosecutor, but is that given to you by the court?
Yeah, everybody has a prosecutor. If something happens to you, the prosecutor represents the plaintiff.
I understand that, but it was that her personal prosecutor, or was it supplied by the court?
No. There's no such thing as a personal prosecutor.
What?
There's no such thing as a personal prosecutor. He's the county official.
Oh, okay. All right,
he's the attorney in charge to prosecute crimes.
Well, nigga, that's why you here. Shit. Okay. I'm sorry. I ain't know, nigga.
No. There's a county official.
Right.
There's a city official. He's a government officer. He is the man that prosecutes crimes against the citizenry.
Okay.
So, in a sense, he is a court-appointed attorney, but he's appointed by the government, and it's not low budget. So let me explain the difference.
All right.
A court-appointed attorney earns in felony cases a maximum of $2,500.
Okay.
Unless he's getting, let's say, which he should have gotten in this case, which the public defender should have gotten in this case, which he didn't. Unless you're getting an expert witness, then the court will approve more expenses. But even that's going to be limited.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the prosecutor is paid to prosecute cases. He earns anywhere from $45,000 to $50,000 a year, depending on where he is in the hierarchy, because it's more than one prosecutor. The prosecutor's office has one head prosecutor who is elected. And then under him are assistant prosecutors that are hired. And they're salaried employees. And these salaried employees start off making at least $45,000.
Right.
So you already have a disparity here. You got a motherfucker here that has unlimited resources. The prosecutor has unlimited resources. He's spending taxpayer dollars. He's paid for by the public. He can bring in, he has access to expert witnesses at no charge to him. All of it's charged to the game. All of it's paid for by the taxpayers. So you got one side, the prosecutor with unlimited resources, against the motherfucker that's wet behind the ear or average attorney supplementing his income with limited expenses. So here's a motherfucker with unlimited expenses versus a motherfucker making $2,500 per case plus an extra $1,500 or $1,000 for an expert witness. That ain't gonna cut it. You understand?
Yeah.
So back to my third person. Back to my categories here. You got the average motherfucker who's trying to supplement his income through the public defender's office. The final person in the public defender's office is a motherfucker who has been in private practice forever and has never been successful. He is a subpar attorney, and the public defender's office is his only source of income. I take that back. Scratch that. He doesn't have a practice. What's happening is he's been in the legal industry for 20, 30 some odd years, and his practice is non-existent.
All right.
And so what he's doing now is he's retired. He's had an unsuccessful practice, and he is retired from the practice of law. He's retired, and now he's taking cases here and there just so he can stay active.
Boy.
So right out the gate, the whole process is uneven. It's disproportionate.
Right.
You walk in at a disadvantage. It's unbalanced, I mean to say. You understand? So that's who the public defender is. An office with limited resources, with an attorney who 9 times out of 10 just wants you to plead and get that shit over with and close that case.
And I'm
9
hearing,
times out of 10, they don't want to try those cases. Go ahead.
And I'm hearing that the jury was like all white women.
I think it was 9 women, 3 men. It wasn't all white women. It was 9 women.
It was all white though, right?
White. All of them were all white.
I'm like, are you serious? You cannot be fucking serious, man.
And
majority of
there's
women.
a Supreme Court case.
Majority of women and all white.
Yes.
Man, fuck out of here, man.
That's a violation under the Supreme Court case. There's several there's the Dodge case and there's the Batson case. And there's the Dodson case, which says that you have to have a jury of your peers. But in the last 30 years, see, this is what that right wing, the conservative Reagan Revolution did to the courts. They have changed anti-discrimination legislation to the point where it's unrecognizable. They have changed it slowly, subtly. They have changed the rules when it comes to discriminatory practices in the court to the point where it's ridiculous. Like, people like to jump on affirmative action, and it is a scam, but it's not a scam for the reason that they say it is. Okay. See, when people are attacking something, you got to look at the motivation. You got to ask why. See, there are some people that are jumping on affirmative action because it doesn't allow them carte blanche the way they used to have carte blanche back before the civil rights movement. Those are people that want an unfair playing field, that want a level or an unbalanced playing field. Okay? And then there are some people that know that the core of those affirmative action programs is the money set aside for those programs. Those programs are allocated a certain amount of money so that they work. So the big corporations, the transnational corporations, the ruling financial elite of this society want that money from those programs to offset any losses that they get in the business sector. So in other words, they don't believe in capitalism. They're anti-capitalist. Anti-capitalist. It is a form of corporate socialism. That's what they want. But they're getting on your ass when you want free health care, but they want a free ride in business. You understand? All right. So what this is all about is they have so twisted and distorted anti-discrimination legislation to where you get shit like what you got in Mr. Albert Wilson's case. You understand? Right. This is the result of the subtle maneuvering of all that shit about government this and government that, when the real truth is that behind the government are the money powers. That's who the government is just managers. Right. If you want to get real about it, the government is superfluous. They're just managers for people with property. Mm-hmm. You understand? So now, because they've so badly distorted the playing field in terms of discrimination, you set up a situation to where you get an all-white jury. When you got Supreme Court precedents, Supreme Court cases that say you cannot have all white juries. But they get around that by saying, okay, and then you got stupid ass niggas. See, we are accomplices to white supremacy, and we don't even know it. See, when you duck jury duty, this is what happens. Right. This is what happens when you ignore that summons to go sit your ass on a jury. They lynch a nigga just like this. This is what happens when you don't participate in the system. And then you cry about mass incarceration. This boy got lynched because it wasn't one nigga on that jury that said, wait a minute now. Hold on. Because actually, the sexual assault charge, which was in this case, that did end up with a hung jury. But what they did was this. They said, okay, we're going to dismiss the sexual. We'll give him a dismissal or a hung jury, not a dismissal, a hung jury. We'll give him a hung jury on the sexual assault case, but we're going to convict him on the rape. Because they know that the rape carries a stiffer penalty. Okay. You understand? So what they did, they said, we'll dismiss the petty shit. We gonna nail him on the shit that locks him up for 12 years.
Damn,
this is what happens when you don't participate in the jury system. This is what happens when you withdraw from the court system. You get shit just like this that happened to Mr. Wilson.
Oh man, but you know
so that's
go ahead.
That's who your public defenders are. Went behind the ear law school graduates, average attorneys who can't make it in private practice, and subpar attorneys who never made it in private practice. With on a limited fucking shoestring budget versus the state with unlimited resources. That's the court system you stepping into.
Okay, well, let me ask you this, man. Do you think that this is blatant racism, or do you think that this is just the judicial system not working due to the fact that this black man didn't have any sort of resources to adequately defend himself?
Okay, you asking me, is this a race versus class argument? I'm going to tell you it's both. It's not mutually exclusive, bruh.
Okay.
It's not mutually exclusive. Two things can be true at the same time.
All right. Okay.
Race makes class hurt more. You understand?
I got you. Okay.
So not only do I want this nigga to work for me, but I want this nigga to work for me for free because he's a nigga. You understand?
Okay.
That's American society 101. That's the American economic system. That's the American social system. That's the American political system. You are the battery. You are the food. It's no accident that you're only 13% of the population and 50%, over 50% of the people incarcerated. That's the reason that they said that slavery is abolished, except for the convicted felon. Right after slavery, right after Reconstruction, they came with these vagrancy laws where they said, well, you go to prison if you don't have a job. That was the genesis. The Reconstruction was the genesis of the prison industrial complex, not the 1960s, as Tariq Nasheed stated or misstated.
Okay.
The genesis of the prison industrial complex occurred after Reconstruction. Because it was a way to get sweet niggas in prison on all white juries. Because at that time, no black person at that period during Jim Crow, you couldn't give testimony against a white person in many places in the South, not in all, but in many places. So it is both race and class. It is because he is both black and poor. It's not mutually exclusive.
Okay. But you know, Cardi B, man, shit, she get carte blanche. She get a free ride, man. She can go ahead and admit, yeah, I drug and rape niggas. Now what?
She ain't the only one. Tommy Sotomayor had a hood rat bitch on his show. He wind up trying to, flirt with on his show, who admitted that she raped niggas.
Oh, damn, word? I missed that shit.
Yeah, he had the girl admitted to raping niggas. She admitted to it. She was a stripper.
What she mean by rape? What is she doing to these motherfuckers, man?
She said she take that shit.
She take it?
She take it.
Well, why they drunk? Do they protest?
Why they drunk? Why they not drunk?
Who is this, Baby D?
I don't know what her name is, but on this podcast, you see this bitch. She tell you up front, no, you ain't getting out here without giving me that dick, nigga. And she take it. She told you.
What the fuck?
And he subsequently had this woman on his show to explain herself. And she came on there trying to water that shit down, and she said he wound up being all nice and sweet to her. Because that's what he do.
Oh, yeah, he's slick. Man, hell no. But I'm just saying,
one minute he's raining down fire and brimstone condemnation on these hoes. The next minute they up under him and he trying to get his dick up in.
Shit. I just find it interesting how you juxtapose, a situation like a Cardi B or an R. Kelly or a Cosby or this Wilson
You know
cat.
how you juxtapose Cardi B? She's a woman. It's like what you said before.
Right.
They're weaponizing female sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
It's 1984, baby. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's why. And Cardi B, see, the society will always allow niggas to make money being ignorant.
Right.
If you're going to be ignorant, if you're going to be a ratchet bitch, they're going to always make a way for you if you ratchet.
Mm-hmm.
It's no different than if you go into any sector of corporate America. You go into any office in corporate America and see, won't you find a ratchet bitch in there masquerading as a pseudo-professional?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Go to the BMV. Shit. You remember when you went to the BMV?
Yeah. Hell yeah. Hell, I don't know if you remember that one female I met that worked at the bank, man, about 5 years ago, man. And then me and her started rapping and getting to know each other, and I found out that, hell, she had like some thug nigga fresh out of prison that she was messing with before me, and how he was using her for her spot to sell dope, and I'm thinking, bitch, you work at the, and she wasn't just a teller at the bank, she was like working in one of them offices, like a loan officer. Yeah, I'm like, bitch. I'm like, she's an idiot. Okay. Right.
There's no socio-economic status to ratchetry.
Wow.
A ratchet is a ratchet.
Right.
You see, but that's what they do. They fill corporate America with these ratchet bitches. There ain't no threat to them because they're using them to snitch on and hold down the niggas. See, what they do is they emasculate. You see how we come back to that term? Mm-hmm. They emasculate the niggas. They emasculate the niggas and empower the ratchet bitches. Nannies, mammies, snitches, and wenches.
Wow.
That's what they are.
Okay.
So Cardi B will be allowed to do this. This is the formula. This is the playbook. Mm-hmm. This is how it works. Frantz Fanon talks about this in The Wretched of the Earth. And in Black Skins and White Masks, he talks about how they empower the woman to disenfranchise the man. This is a standard playbook of colonial ideology.
Okay.
This is what they do. This is a part of conquest. The female is essentially psychologically, politically, economically, and socially the property of the motherfucker that runs society. So she is a weapon against the man. But it ain't gonna stop there. Like you said, like you brilliantly pointed out, it ain't gonna stop with the niggas.
Sure ain't.
It ain't gonna stop with them. You think what? You think they gonna? You think that all of this? You gonna sit safe while they disempower, while they disenfranchise black men? You think you gonna sit there and hold your position? No, because in order for society to usher in an author. Damn, I'm having a buckwheat moment today.
Oh, no.
In order to for society to usher in an authoritarian. There it is. An authoritarian regime, a dictatorial regime. You can't have whole people. You have to destroy people. Mm-hmm. You have to destroy the very glue that makes people whole. You have to destroy gender roles. You can't have healthy, vibrant men in society. Mm-mm. Not in an authoritarian society. You can't have men on their masculinity, on the square of their masculinity. You have to shatter notions of masculinity because you have to shatter notions of personhood. You have to shatter notions of independence. You have to shatter notions of autonomy. So you have to blur the lines of gender. You have to blur the lines of femininity. You have to blur the lines of masculinity. You have to blur the lines of autonomy. You have to blur the lines of independence. You have to blur the lines of what it means to be a person. You can't conquer whole people. Slavery taught you that. You must destroy the characteristics that make people human. In the greater society, those characteristics are going to be masculinity and femininity. You have to switch them. You have to distort them. You have to pervert them. You have to subvert them. because you're trying to make obedient, compliant slaves.
Well, let me ask you this. Even though we know that these brothers they're getting railroaded and these are miscarriages of justice, do you think that Cardi B should partake of the same fate here, the same treatment?
Do I think she should be treated like Cosby?
Yeah.
If the laws were fair, she would be treated like Cosby.
Yeah, if.
But yes, if.
Yeah, if.
Okay, let me put on my hat now. Let me go back and put on my hat. Cardi B should be in prison right now.
Okay.
Not today.
Right.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
Not yesterday. The day before yesterday.
Okay.
Not the day before yesterday. Last year. There should be a criminal indictment. But see, here's how see. You always talk about the women. Where are the niggas? There should be some niggas somewhere saying this bitch raped me.
Right. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Where are the niggas at? The nigga, yeah, I got raped by Cardi B, nigga.
But see, well, let's back up, right? Because I think I heard like two stories, man. It's like they say Cardi B would have trannies come over and rape the dude that she went ahead and drugged. You know what I'm saying?
That's worse.
Yeah, so I would believe that most cats who was probably subject to that treatment probably don't want to come forward in the event that did actually happen. Now,
no, we can't be hypocrites, because if we crack down on the bitches for not coming forward,
I'm not cracking down. I'm not cracking down on nobody. I'm just stating the fact.
I'm saying if you don't bring your ass forward for 20 years, fuck you. So that rule goes for the bitches and it goes for the motherfucking niggas too.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
You bring your ass forward. They wasn't ashamed to come forward and put Mr. Cosby in prison.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Why they got chauffeured back and forth and sponsored and subsidized by NBC. And while they being represented by Gloria Allred, they weren't ashamed coming forward 20 years later. So here's some bitches coming forward 20 years later. Why can't you come forward?
Well, my argument ain't about that. I was just stating the fact that cats who may have gotten raped by a tranny may not want to come forward. You know, I was just stating, what may be happening. I'm not excusing the niggas. I'm not excusing them.
That's the same argument the women
I know that, but that's still not my point, homie. My point is you said that these niggas need to come forward. And I was just saying these niggas probably don't want to come forward if they got a dick in their ass. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I was just hitting you with a statement, partner.
Well, that's what I'm saying is, that's wonderful. But what I'm saying is fuck that.
Yeah, they should come forward. If you want some justice, then yeah, nigga, you gotta come forward. You gotta say something. Close mouth, don't get fed.
Therein lies the rub.
Yeah.
Because if you go be a men's rights activist, you can't be a men's rights activist acting like a bitch.
Right. Mm-hmm. Now, look. If it's a different scenario where she drugged him and then she fucked him, you know what I mean? She jumped on the dick and did the sexual act. I don't see why any dude would not come forward if that happened. You know what I mean? Ain't really no big shame in that. You know what I mean? But I don't.
It's a shame getting when a nigga running your ass, when a tranny running your ass.
Yeah. There's shame when a tranny running up in you, but there ain't. I mean, what kind of shame can a dude get when you say, "Oh yeah, Cardi, she got me drunk and she sucked my dick"? You know what I'm saying?
Let me say this. I understand your position, but fuck that. Rape is rape, because that's what they say. Rape is rape.
Okay, all right.
Rape is rape. Fuck that. You got rape, come forward. I don't care if you got a dick in your ass, or if the bitch put your balls in her mouth. I don't care. Rape is rape, come forward. You can't sit here and complain about women being treated differently, and you gonna act like them, but still want equal justice to be dispensed equally. Don't happen that way. Fuck that.
Well, to me, this is obvious that these cats don't consider themselves getting raped.
Well, the system don't. Well, you're right. The system don't either, and that's why they're dispensing justice.
Mm-hmm.
Honey, that's why Cardi B can be out here walking around.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Cosby and R. Kelly, who's on his way to prison, because he's going. And Mr. Wilson is in prison right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's all about the thought process, man. You know what I'm saying? The worst thing that you could do, man, is give a woman any sort of power, man. The more I think about it, and especially when I was studying philosophy and religion, and I was really tripping, man. Like when I transitioned out of Christianity and got into Islam, one of the things that really turned me off about Christianity, as far as like in the Dark Ages and the Middle Ages, it was their treatment of women. You know what I mean? How they put an ironclad clamp down on women, dog. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, what in the hell is going on with the church fathers, man? These motherfuckers got issues, man. They need some pussy in their life or something, because they seem to have this really hardcore hate and disdain for women, man. And so the more I live and the more I experience, when you give a woman power, and when you give a collective of women a lot of power, you start seeing some ugly shit, man. You know what I mean? And I think that the church fathers, and I gotta basically reverse my position on this shit, they were wise men. These crackers, man, these Caucasians, man, as devilish as they were wise men to do that. Do what they did at that particular time when it came to women, man. Because when you let women run amok and run roughshod with their sexuality like this is what happens, my nigga.
Well, I would say they were wise. I would agree with you, but I would say the feudal African kingdoms were wiser.
Okay.
In that they understood how they could harness femininity or harness female power for the good of the collective.
All right.
So in other words, the Africans didn't have a problem with the female queen, but the female queen understood that her power rested upon the masculine principle. So in other words, when Candace goes out to stop Alexander's invasion in the interior of the continent, she knew that her reign depended on those 100,000 male warriors that lined the interior of the continent to stop that invasion. So in other words, in Africa, there was always a check against female power. Female power existed, but it wasn't total. You understand? This flies in the face of all that shit about black women are queens. Black women were queens, but it rested on the authority of the men.
All right.
Because just like the men made you, they could unmake you. And the women were very conscious of that. Okay. You understand?
Right.
And every time in African history where a woman had unfettered power or unwieldy power, the kingdoms crumbled. You understand?
Yeah.
So feudal African societies, they knew that masculine power was a check. You don't give women unrivaled, unwieldy power, unchecked authority. You don't do no shit like that.
Because they take it to the motherfucking brink of... They just take it too far, my nigga.
Exactly.
they take it too far, bro.
The Africans were a bit slicker. See, the Europeans like, fuck you. They were like, well, fuck you. I'm going to put this iron boot on your neck, bitch. Bitch, get on your knees.
Right.
Whereas the Africans were like, you really want to do this? Seriously? You want to lose it all? Because if I don't take up this sword, bitch, you through.
Okay.
You understood? You understand?
Right.
One of them were more, they were more subtle in their persuasion versus the general off with these bitches' heads in the era of Christianity.
Right.
So, yes, they were wise, but the Africans were wise. But you're right. You saw what happened when we went to court. How did that bitch act?
Man, she looked at us like dirt, man. I'm like, bitch, I'll jump there and smack the shit out you.
You saw how she was talking?
I want to smack shit out that bitch, nigga. I was like, the nerve of this bitch. Like, look
and
at
the
me.
only reason she doing that, the only reason she doing that is because she's trying to be just like the men. She don't want it to be said that she's soft because she's a woman.
Right.
So she gonna fuck a man just to show she's just like a man. She gonna fuck over someone who has been aggrieved just to show she deserves to be on the bench.
Boy, I'm trying to tell you. Woo.
That's why you don't give these. That's why in this society, in American society, a woman should never wear a robe. Not on the bench. I'm against a woman being, and I'm against a woman being president.
Right.
Even if it's Michelle Obama, I'm against a woman running the country. And you hey, yes, sexist. You goddamn right.
Goddamn right. If they knew what I knew, nigga. Shit.
I am against a woman being in control of anything. And I never thought I would say that, but I'm saying it. At 47 years old, I don't think there needs to be a woman president. I don't think a woman needs to be in charge of anything that has to do or that relates in any way to force or power, or the implementation of violence in society.
Right.
I don't think a woman should be in charge of that. I don't. Not in no shape, form, or fashion. They can be, and I see what happened to them when they're attorneys. You got a white female attorney here. She's a butch. You remember that white woman that was up there? You probably don't remember. The first time when we went up there and filed the lawsuit, that white woman that was over there when you and I were talking and having that discussion.
I don't know. There's so many white women in that building, nigga. I don't know. Shit.
The white woman that was sitting over there at that computer when we were upstairs in the law library.
I don't remember, man.
She is one of those women like that.
Okay.
She has been in the old boys club, and so now what happens is she gets off on cutting men's nuts. So she's a hardcore radical feminist. She is a hardcore liberal radical feminist, and she gets off because see them white boys done slapped her around. The niggas ain't done it to her. It's the white boys that's always checking her.
Okay.
And so she gets off now. She gets off on cutting motherfuckers' nuts off. You don't want to put that bitch on the bench. You don't want to put that bitch on the bench. You would never do that. So, the moral of the story is they're going to let these bitches get away with that as long as they can control it. Back to Cardi B, rather. They're going to let these bitches get away with that because she ain't no threat to them. She's a hood rat. She's a hood rat, and plus, this hood rat makes the record companies a lot of money. She can sell her sexuality and make them billions of dollars. They like that. So, as long as she can do that, she's safe. She can come out and admit to raping 100 niggas. Because if the niggas come forward, they ain't gonna do nothing but pay them off in settlements.
Okay.
Just like what they did with R. Kelly. And now the bitch still got whore's remorse, and they're trying to prosecute him now.
She crazy.
But you know how nigga is. Nigga gonna take that money and be like, okay, well, fuck that. I'm paid now. Let me get the fuck up. I got my little bread. I'm cool. But the bitches get that bread and they come back and they want more.
They want more.
You understand?
They just go too far, nigga. Damn.
Yeah. So they're going to let her do her thing because she is a weapon of mass destruction in their hands.
And she's an agent of chaos, nigga.
An agent of chaos. You see. But Mr. Wilson, can't have that.
Bruh. Well, check it out, man. I gotta cut it short, man. I gotta give me some sleep, man. But before we do that, I want to implore the fellas, man. It is indeed a different time, a different era, and even me and Tony, we've had to modify our game to adapt with the times, man. You know what I mean? We can't just be having full-blown drunken cult sex orgies like we used to and shit, man, because you just don't know what kind of nonsense a bitch is thinking, man, with this Me Too movement shit popping off, man, where they can go ahead and just insinuate you did something and it's just automatically believed and you already in the hot seat, man. So remember, it's treacherous. It's fucked up out here for the players, man. Be really, really careful about how you get down and who you get down with, players. You know what I mean? So I just want to go ahead and say, before I sign out, shout out to RH for your latest donation. Appreciate you, brother. And also shout out to my man C Boogie for hitting me up a couple of days ago with your donation. You know, I didn't forget about you, man. I was supposed to say it on the last show, but I did forget about you on that last show, but I didn't forget about you on this show. So go ahead, Tony, man. Take us on out of here, man, because I think we up on an hour. You know what I mean? So let's put the capstone on the pyramid, pimp.
You know, we have never told y'all what to do. We've always said, do that which benefits you. Today I have to modify that. And I'm talking to all players in the Mac City universe. I don't care whether you select or non-select. I don't care whether you alpha, beta, theta, delta, epsilon, sigma, gamma, zeta. If you gonna fuck with these women, get it all on tape. From the admission to the money shot. Get it all on tape. I don't care if you getting head in the car. Get it on tape. I don't care if you've been married to this woman for 20 years. Get it on tape. I don't care if she's your baby mama 4 times over. Get it on tape. If you pull your pants down to go up in a bitch, you should not only have a condom if you don't want children. You should have a cell phone, a smartphone. You should have a camera. Get it on tape. I don't care what the situation is. I don't care if you fucking a bitch in a broom closet. Get it on tape. Get it on tape. I personally support and believe in revenge porn.
Ooh, shit.
Get it on tape. Get it on tape. Protect yourself. Not only with a condom, but arm yourself with a smartphone. Because this is not going to stop. They put a 23-year-old young man in prison for sucking on a woman's titty consensually. That was consensual.
Mm-hmm.
There is a black man, a young black man in prison for 12 years. 12 years of his life is gone. Is gone. Is gone. Is gone. Is gone. Because of some ratchet white bitch who now claims that she has PTSD.
Damn.
She cries and vomits.
Crazy.
She's just so traumatized by bullshit. Get it on tape. Get it on tape. Get it on tape. Get it on tape. And if we have any white men that are listening to this, I was talking to niggas today, but this applies to you too. If you choose to listen, get it on tape. Get it on tape. Get it on tape. You may not can get the bitch to sign a model release, but get it on tape. But get it on tape. Get it on tape. Protect yourself. The hunt is on. What the motherfucker saying, menace to society. The hunt is on, and you're the prey. And the only thing I'm saying to you is survive. Survive. Get as much dirt on a bitch as you can get on her. You gonna need that. And they gonna tell you how cruel you, this is toxic masculinity. Fuck that. This is survival. This is war. There's no crying in war. Protect yourself. Backcity.com. I'm done.
Well now, once again, pay more bills. Hit me up on my PayPal, man. It's gonna be in the description box. You know what I'm saying? In the comment section and Patreon /Mac City Limits. That is my personal blog, my personal little documentary of my whole life, man, dealing with the hustle in the streets, in the game, with all my female friends, you know what I'm saying? So if you just want to be entertained to see how I get down, it is a chock full of game all up in that joint. You feel me? Man, shout out to my patrons, man. I'm trying to tell y'all, man, I'm really loving this Patreon shit, man. I'm having a lot of goddamn fun, man. And it's just going to get so much more better this spring, you know, especially when the weather break. You know what I mean? So, yeah, fellas, fuck with me, man. Come on now. Fuck with me, man. Yeah, y'all won't be disappointed. There's all sorts of crazy, random nonsense going on in that Patreon. You know what I'm saying? And also, Tony, you know, you got to hit them one more time with where they can find you, bro.
You can find me wayofstrategy44@gmail.com. Wayofstrategy44@gmail.com. That is also my PayPal. Patreon, Power of Strategies. I haven't updated my Power of Strategies Patreon in a while, but I'm going to update it with new articles. And also powerandstrategy.com. Powerandstrategy.com. Do not go to the YouTube page. Do not go to the YouTube page. If you want podcast or video podcast or audio podcast, MacCityLimits.com. MacCityLimits.com. If you go to that goddamn YouTube page, you're going to find very little shit there. You understand? Because the truth is, there's no chemistry like the chemistry that you enjoy in a Mac City Limits podcast. You understand? I'm at my best here. I'm on top of my game here. So if you want to hear or listen to what I have to say, you need to come here. Otherwise, I'm a blogger. Otherwise, I'm a writer. If you want to read my articles, powerandstrategy.com, the Negro Manosphere, I got to upload one because I tried to upload it yesterday, but there's something funny going on with this site. But my latest article is actually going to be on Albert Wilson. Okay. My latest article at the Negro Manosphere is going to be on the case of Albert Wilson. Okay. So tune in to the Negro Manosphere for my article. Go to Power and Strategy for my article. Like, share, and subscribe to my website. And, of course, MacCity.com. Support the Patreon at MacCityLimits.com. Hell, go to the website. Get some game from the website. You know, Mac is going to show you how to protect yourself. Because at this moment, he is the only one that hasn't been arrested. But in this environment, that may change. You know?
Hey, all I can say is I did it my way.
I am definitely concerned at this point, and I'm always on the lookout.
Right.
You know, I'm keeping tabs on all you old bitches right now to see where they are. It's got just that deep. Mm-hmm. You know, because the slightest hint when they start whispering, you know, I have to enact what did Palpatine call it? Executive Order 66.
Yeah, man.
That's real, because we ain't going. We ain't going. He ain't going, and I ain't going. We ain't going.
Scorched earth policy, boy.
Scorched earth policy. He ain't going. I ain't going. We ain't going, and we don't want you players to go either. Protect yourself.
All right, man. Shit. Well, this is the Fat Mac, the Almighty Triple XL Big Mike, coming at you live and direct from MacCity.com, Mac City Limits Radio Show, and powerandstrategy.com. And we out. And we out. And we out. And we out.